The games of the 29 Olympiad in 2008 are awarded to the city of Beijing.
The Chinese capital hasn't seen anything like this since June 1989. But this time, people aren't opposing their government, they're celebrating a victory.
The modern politics of China, through the eyes of the student chasing a place in the Communist Party. The party secretary on the campaign trail. The artist who survived history. And the child, teetering on the edge of a nation's pride. All playing a role in the party game. These are words that were so nearly lost. They're from a famous Chinese poem, The Announcement of the Dawn.
I have trembled the dew to get here. I have followed the glimmer of the last star. I shall bring light for the world. I shall bring warmth for mankind. Ask them to welcome me, the messenger of light, the herald of the day.
Another day dawns for the workers at the most important building site in China. In their faces, you can see the glimmer of too many false dawns. On their shoulders, the burden of too many isms. They live in a country that, at least from the 1900s, has yearned to awaken modern, democratic, and free. They have dealt with feudalism, colonialism, imperialism, and now struggle to build something that the world has never seen before. Communism, marching in lockstep with capitalism, towards yet one more dawn. They're building the Olympic Stadium, the emporium for China's coming out party in 2008. China, 1/5 of the world's population, is transforming itself. The world is taking note, and the numbers are staggering. It now uses up 1/3 of the world's steel, almost half of its cement. But what type of society is China building? Like the Olympic Stadium site, the country's construction is confusing, chaotic, and on a scale that is both unimaginable and breathtaking. This bus greets the dawn 6 days a week. Training starts at 6:15. Her name is Xiao Sha. She's 14, an Olympic athlete, and a long way from home.
In the beginning, I was very scared. I was always crying when I thought of my mother. My coach saw my puffy eyes and asked me what happened. You were crying, right? And I said yes. I really missed my mom.
Her family is 2 hard travel days away.
哎，小沙呀，哦，你吃饭没？
是啊。
现在在的嘛。
还要去办呢？
刚刚吃起我们大家。
还好吃没？
他讲好吃，好吃的很，讲你妈做的菜好吃的很。嗯。
他比我还有腹肌，我都没得吃，他得吃。
哦，好。
They haven't seen Xiao Sha in 3 years. They are in Guizhou, one of the poorest provinces in the country. She is in Beijing.
你要注意了，要多努力点的是么？本身你在外边，爸爸帮不到你样子，是不是？要靠你自己了，是不是？哦，你要听他教练的话嘞。
春节的时候。
I miss her the most during the Chinese New Year. Other times, of course I miss her, but that's the worst time. When I saw her last, of course I was very happy, but also sad, and kept rubbing her hand.
It's a new training center, and it glistens with determination. Coaches like Li Yuezhe have been brought back from America. Children have been plucked and are now being preened, all for a nation's pride.
The athletes are raised by the nation. This is accepted by everyone, including myself. When I was little, I also had to leave my family. You can't harvest without plowing. You have to give up something to achieve something.
Xiao Sha is seen as a gold medal prospect. But she can also be seen as a political tableau of China. Great leaps made with the knowledge that the slightest misstep could bring disaster. The Olympic clock has pride of place in Beijing, overlooking Tiananmen Square. The message is unmistakable. China has turned the term developing country from a platitude into a reality, and they're counting down the minutes to showtime.
China is going through major changes. It has finally come to a level field where it can have a dialogue with other nations and other cultures and compete with them.
He knows more than most how far China has come. Ai Weiwei is a leading modern artist, the sort so little understood in any country. He integrates a ruined temple's beam into a modern table to show how destruction can bring new meaning. Ai Weiwei has attitude, and he doesn't mind displaying it, even in China. This, he says, is the acronym for his company. And so, amid all the confusing lines of modern Chinese politics, Ai Weiwei occupies a remarkable position. Bad boy nihilist, and the man who collaborated with a Swiss company to design the Olympic Stadium.
Lots of people are attracted to its oriental appearance. This kind of design reflects how the Chinese tradition views a single object. There is always this desire to capture an entire world view, a vision of the whole universe in a single piece of work. So, actually, this stadium is more than just a stadium. It reflects the ambitions of our time, the dreams of our time. They may fail, they may disappoint. They still say a lot about China at this moment, its hopes, and how it would like the world to see it.
But hope is a difficult thing to clad onto a building or build into a nation. The famous poet I Ching wrote of hope that it was dream's friend, illusion's sister. For many in China, the good life is still illusory. These women in Guizhou washing vegetable roots are a political reality. China's new wealth rests in the cities, but 3/4 of the people toil in the countryside. And of late, the countryside has been racked by thousands of riots. The danger is not lost on a party that came to power in a peasant revolution. She is a grandmother, a local party secretary, and head of the village of Hongshuang. And Mrs. Liu is leading the government's efforts to placate the peasants in this corner of Sichuan.
People had a very tough life here in the past. They were so poor, they couldn't send their kids to school.
For centuries, the fields beside her were rice paddies. Then Mrs. Liu decided there was more money in a different crop.
In the beginning, I started to plant flowers on my own little farm. The villagers saw the results and realized they could do it as well. Now they have all switched over to flowers.
Agricultural reforms in the 1980s allowed peasants to move from collectivization to profit-making. And flowers, says Mrs. Liu, have helped them quadruple their incomes. And the prospects seem brighter still.
We have already signed one contract with the Olympic organization to supply flowers for the Games. China's glory will also be our glory. I feel proud and satisfied. I have done what I'm supposed to do.
This is her latest achievement, the paved road that replaced the dirt track. Mrs. Liu has a shrewd understanding of local politics. Tomorrow, the villagers get to take part in one of the communist government's experiments with democracy. The sign is calling villagers to vote. Mrs. Liu is being challenged at the polls. At the Beijing Technology Expo, there's another Olympic connection that offers a revealing glimpse of China's politics. Among the exhibitors is a company trying to get a contract to deliver high-tech Olympic tickets. They will be issued from machines dotted around the city like ATMs.
Our company is trying to come up with a system which will print the tickets for the Olympic Games with more interesting designs to increase their commemorative value as souvenirs.
Lu Yuanfei is the brains behind the technology. He wants visitors to go home with their picture on an Olympic ticket. And, he hopes, a different picture of China.
A lot of people don't know what China is really like now. They still have images of the Chinese with pigtails, like in the early 20th century, and think of China as a poor, rural backwater place. This is the impression most people have, and to us, it's laughable.
There's another impression Lu Yunfei wants to correct. China kowtowing to foreign powers, particularly the Japanese. He's an ardent nationalist with a website that has surprising reach. He's organized dozens of anti-Japanese demonstrations in recent years that give voice to historical grievance and modern resentment, but also reveal a rise in nationalist fervor.
So people think we're an anti-Japanese website, but we're more than just that. Our website is concerned about safeguarding the interests of our nation and the people. As far as I'm concerned, patriotism is about loving this country.
Bonjour. 这是法语，意大利语是 buongiorno.
Students at Beijing University gather for an Olympic volunteers training session. Foreign students are taking them through some of the basics of Western decorum.
我觉得这个吃饭的，还有各种各样的东西，有不能有声音，不能打嗝，也不能放屁啊这些。
Wu Han, 18, is a first-year law student.
I'm very excited about the 2008 Olympics because lots of people will come to China and see for themselves how we're changing and developing.
It's much harder for a Chinese student to get into Beijing University than for an American to get into Harvard. Wu Han has made it. Opportunity beckons as it never has before. Anything seems possible in an economy that has grown by 9% for more than 20 years. And yet the one thing she wants to do is join the Communist Party.
I was influenced by my family, My grandfather tried hard to join the party but failed. My father was only recently accepted. I want to join to bring fresh blood to the party and to enrich my own life experience.
Guo Han is trying to join the party in a one-party state. There is a separate government, but every meaningful position in it is held by a party member. And joining the party is no easy task. It's a 2-year process. More are rejected than are ever accepted. And it turns out that in today's Communist Party, ideological fervor is optional, according to university youth leader Zhang Xin.
There are those who want to join for opportunistic reasons because it is closely related to their future career. As a party member, you have certain advantages in society.
Surprisingly, the party's chief recruiter on campus is okay with candidates who are more ambitious than zealous.
As far as I am concerned, a highly politicized society doesn't make me feel optimistic. I prefer a society that is less ideological.
The signs of change are everywhere. At Beijing University, these billboards were once festooned with political posters. Today, the clarion call is for something quite different. Master's programs in business administration. It's all part of the blurring pace of change. China has developed a new confidence, and the swagger, though slight, is nonetheless detectable in Guo Han's generation.
Right now, our immediate goal is to increase our economic power, to become prosperous and powerful. Economic growth doesn't have to be guided by any isms.
As it prepares for the Olympics, the Chinese government is slopping about in an ideological miasma. If it's on track for anything, it's a gold medal in pragmatism. They have an abiding belief in one great political maxim of Western politics. It's the economy, stupid. The Communist Party faces colossal problems of legitimacy as it creates a capitalist theme park. And they're desperately hoping that there isn't a problem that can't be paved over by a bustling economy. One problem is freedom of thought. And there the artist and critic, Ai Weiwei, believes the government is moving, slowly and deliberately, in the right direction.
Today in China, there is an opportunity to avoid going back to the dark days. But it all depends on us and our understanding of what exactly we went through. I personally experienced some of the hardship China was going through.
A national convulsion unleashed by Mao and seen through the eyes of a 9-year-old boy.
What I saw every day was a lot of hatred and anger. Craziness and chaos were the main ingredients of my childhood.
The Cultural Revolution of the mid-60s was a crusade against bourgeois thinking in the nation and Mao's enemies in the party. It was mammoth and would swallow innocent victims by the millions. Ai Weiwei would be almost 20 before he was released from its grip. His father, Ai Qing, was the poet laureate of the Communist Revolution, but even he fell victim to the Cultural Revolution, and with his wife, Gao Ying, and their 3 children, was banished to Xinjiang, a bleak land beyond the Gobi Desert.
We didn't live in a house. We lived in a hole in the ground, in a kind of bomb shelter.
The greatest poet of his age had his books burned, was banned from publishing, and was put to work cleaning latrines used by 200 soldiers.
There was a large pit. He had to take all the shit and urine and move it out of the pit. In the summer, it was very hot and it was foul-smelling. The winter in Xinjiang is freezing. Ai Qing had to use large steel rods to break up the waste and move it out.
Almost every day he had to attend meetings, so-called self-criticism sessions. I remember one night, it was very late. He was called away to one of these meetings, so I was left at home alone and I was very scared. When my father came back and entered the door, I was horrified because I saw this man all black, pitch black. Then he told me that the Red Guards had dumped a whole bucket of ink over his head, so he turned all black. Almost every day, he lived under this kind of terror.
The Cultural Revolution ended in 1976. Ai Weiwei was 19 and marked for life.
I was angry and restless. I thought my only way out was to become an independent artist. Because as an artist, you can create your own system. You can have your own logic.
By 1980, his work was being frowned upon by the authorities. He took off for New York. He stayed for 13 years and returned emboldened.
This experience had a big impact on whatever projects I got involved in later, including collaborating on this Olympic stadium. Whatever I do, I always bear in mind that I'm a free individual. I have the right, the ability to choose.
Ai Weiwei's father, Ai Qing, wrote these words in 1942.
My poem is dedicated to the luckless people of the village, who are, like wild boars, both taciturn and fierce. They have been, for so long, hoodwinked, cheated, and ridiculed. Every face masks a seething resentment that has yet to explode.
Fear of peasant revolt once again stalks China's rulers. But Mayor Liu is confident the party's efforts can keep the people appeased.
Nowadays, democracy is what ordinary people want. When they have democracy, they feel that they are respected.
There have been elections in Hongzhuan since 1988. They're held every 3 years. Tomorrow, there's a wrinkle, though. The neighboring village has been brought into the electoral district. It's the power base for Mrs. Liu's challenger, 51-year-old garlic grower Zhang Lunqiang.
The leader must be a good leader for the common people. He must make people rich. And to do that, he must be rich himself. I always think that the way I can compete with Mrs. Liu is that I'm a man and she's a woman. A woman can still work well. You see, she paved the cement road there. A cement road is much better than a dirt one. It's quite clear. Right now, the road here is a dirt road. We all admire Mayor Liu. She has a head for economics.
The economics of the village are plain to see. They are on the wall of Mrs. Liu's home.
It's a clear balance sheet. It's a good way to keep everything legal.
It's an important gesture, born of one of the party's greatest problems: corruption. The party launched a national anti-corruption campaign in 2005. And at Beijing University, after a long day of classes, party candidates have been called to a meeting Buo Han among them.
这个我很震惊。首先我要检讨，李高成同志啊，暂且还称他为同志，是我亲手从基层提拔起来的。可我万万没有想到，他竟置党纪国法于不顾，收受如此巨额的贿赂。
The film is called Live or Die. It's a Hollywood-type treatment of a morality tale about a mayor whose wife takes a bribe. It has been a blockbuster at the box office and is now compulsory viewing for all party members. Tonight, for Buo Han, the message strengthens her resolve.
I feel it's hard for us to avoid having some bad apples in our organization. That is why we young people need to join the party, because we are relatively pure.
应该相对纯洁一点。
其实是体制机制问题。别说你我解决不了，谁也解决不了。
There are 68 million party members. They're in charge of the world's fastest-growing economy. Officials have been prosecuted and even executed for corruption. But it remains rife, and left unchecked, could prove fatal to the party's image. It's an image they hope will be burnished by the Olympic Games. The stadium will be a powerful emblem of a China led by the party that can compete in the world. Humiliation at the hands of foreign powers is burned deep into the nation's psyche. In the last century, almost every major power invaded and plundered, and they're all remembered. The most searing memory, Japan's invasion. The 1937 rape of Nanking, the mass graves, the killing of 300,000, the sheer, wanton barbarism. And now, an opportunity to remind people that the party brought them from there to here.
错了，手关下来，那个亚红，手关过来，过来。 手在这边，走，3、4，走，1，放松，3，大哈。
因为受的教育不一样嘛，我们国家就是老师说什么。
The way our education is conducted, the students do what the teachers tell them to do. Not like other countries where students can argue with their teachers and parents. This rarely happens in China.
哈，呼吸，1、2、3、4、5、6、7，走。 2、3，反应慢了，哈，完了，再来，消杀，你直接走往那边走还搞不清楚嘛？要每个人要讲一遍才懂。
Sometimes training is very tiring, and there were times when my training was going nowhere. Also, I don't know why, but every day I was performing especially bad, and my coach was scolding me.
本来上舞蹈课是高高兴兴的，配上音乐。 那个情绪啊，包括了音乐的背景，就是被你这种思想呢，还有你这种作风，都把这个搞砸了。你说这个能练的什么呢？练舞蹈是练什么？我问你们。
The training is so hard. Sometimes I wonder why I chose this path. It's useless to bring this up to my family. They say there is no other way. Once, I went home for the Chinese New Year. I said, "Mom, I don't want to train anymore. It's so tiring." She didn't say anything. I've spent so much time training, it's impossible to give up now. And if I quit, I wouldn't be able to catch up in school. So I can only rely on myself and keep training hard.
They're a professional army theater troupe, and the play is about how their army was modernized by a famous general. It's being performed at Beijing University. In the audience, party candidate Buo Han.
They are not just a capable army, but also their high moral integrity and thoughts are good examples to learn from.
In the West, we hold a different view of the Army. We remember June 4th, 1989, the night the Army slaughtered the students.
Looked and sounded like a war zone.
Wu Han was 2 years old at the time.
I'm not very familiar with this historical event. The army had to obey orders. I believe their loyalty is hard to judge as to whether it's right or wrong. What's done is done, but history can serve as a lesson for the next generation.
Tiananmen 1989 still haunts Chinese politics. Criticism is now allowed, but demonstrations are still feared. And the overriding fear is, if control is lost, chaos will follow. The government got a taste of what could happen in the spring of 2005. Thousands of people demonstrated against a new issue of Japanese textbooks that covered over its atrocities in China. The ardent nationalist Liu Yunfei, who had organized dozens of anti-Japanese demonstrations, was caught off guard.
We don't know who organized it. Maybe we'll never find out. You know, there's this thing called the butterfly effect. It's said that a butterfly on the Pacific Ocean, by flapping its wings, can trigger off a tornado.
At the time, China was lobbying against Japan getting a permanent seat on the UN Security Council. The outburst of nationalist fervor suited the government at first. But as it grew, the authorities became alarmed and struggled to put the nationalist genie back in the bottle. Liu Yunfei felt the pressure.
Our website was closed down just before May Day, and we haven't been able to reopen yet.
And thousands of cell phones received this text message. It was from the local police station and read, "Don't believe in rumors. Don't spread any rumors. Express your patriotism in a sensible way. Don't participate in any illegal demonstrations." It's election day in Hongzhuan. The villagers are gathered in the schoolyard. The flag is unfurled. The regional party brass are on hand. Within the hour, Mrs. Liu will know if her flower power has withstood the challenge from Mr. Zhang, the garlic grower.
I want to win. You know why? Other people recommended my candidacy. So if I lose, I'll lose face. It won't look good.
Everybody has high expectations for this election. For me, this is a very important day. I am, after all, the head of the ordinary people.
It doesn't quite fit with strict international standards. There's too much discussion, and no one takes advantage of the private booth. But it's a good-natured affair, and the ballots are cast with some enthusiasm. The counting is open for all to see. Across the country, not all village elections have gone as well as here. Sometimes there is corruption. Sometimes the voters resort to clan loyalties, and there have been riots. But this is also the first generation of Chinese peasants to get to vote on anything. It's undeniable progress, but progress that's going to stop here. Zhao Haoyu is party secretary for the county.
With 1 billion people, we have huge differences in education levels, beliefs, and culture. How can you let people with one checkmark vote to elect our prime minister?
There's another reason why democracy will stop at the village gate. The Chinese have studied why the communist parties of the Eastern Bloc fell from power and concluded that the political reform outpaced economic progress. So people got the right to complain, but not the wherewithal to improve their lot. So they voted out the communists. The Chinese party is determined not to make the same mistake.
For this election method to progress further, it has to go hand in hand with economic reform.
Today, tallying the votes is quick and conclusive. Mr. Jiang, 481. Mrs. Liu, 1,627.
I don't feel bad about losing. This is the people's decision, and it's a good one.
The government has taken other measures to ease the load on the peasants. They've just abolished agricultural taxes. As for the elections, it remains to be seen if they are a sop or a seed. It's all a difficult balancing act, and it's by no means clear that the party can hold it all together, or indeed, if it's altogether sure where it's going. The party is always adapting. At Beijing University, Guo Han is preparing for her own election. Her classmates are about to vote on her candidacy.
After a period of appraisal and study, now I will be evaluated by the organization. They will decide if I can be formally accepted.
There are 9 candidates. Only 4 will survive tonight's vote. The party is trying to introduce an element of democracy within its ranks. It's easy to be cynical. But it is perhaps more interesting to wonder if this is the party scratching at something new, and to wonder where it could all end up. Guo Han has survived and looks to the future.
Many people say that the 21st century is China's. But I'm cautious about that. After all, we haven't reached the target we are aiming for. Too much rhetoric isn't helpful. Don't say it, just do it. Everybody should just do their job. With our vast population, in the not too distant future, our time will come.
They have traveled 7 hours by bus through a biblical landscape that's finally showing signs of progress. Xiao Sha has come for a provincial competition. Guiyang City is as close as she's ever likely to get to her hometown. It is 3 years since they last saw their daughter.
I could see she'd grown taller and bigger. I'm so happy. As parents, we only wish that our children have a better life than ours. Then we'll be happy.
The national team looks after her very well, which gives our family peace of mind.
I'm aware of what I have now, and I appreciate it. I won't give up easily.
We also have high expectations. We handed her over to the state. We hope she will bring honor to our country.
China is now a country of high expectations, and the evidence is everywhere. This is Jinghua, a small western town in the midst of a facelift. It's looking to the future and trying to come to some accommodation with the past. It has a museum to celebrate its most famous son, who died in 1996. He was a boy born into a noble family, but given away to peasants because a soothsayer said he was cursed. His name was I Ching, and the soothsayer was probably right. After years in the wilderness, the poet was rehabilitated in 1979, when the mayhem of the Cultural Revolution was declared a mistake.
When he published his first poem, people were thrilled. They were saying to each other, I Ching came back, I Ching survived. He got thousands of letters from people, some saying that although they don't drink, they'd gotten drunk for him to celebrate the good news.
Much of I Ching's work was lost to the tumult of his time. But today his poems are commemorated in stone. This is a monument to his work. It was commissioned by the local party. It's a prestige project by the same artist who designed the Olympic Stadium. I Ching's son, Ai Weiwei. But nothing in the new China is simple, and Ai Weiwei has mixed feelings about the work and what it really represents.
I believe that this was not just built to commemorate my father. Actually, in today's China, commemorating a cultural figure, someone influential like him, to a large extent, is also to increase the value of the land, to enhance the city's value both culturally and commercially.
Clearly, China still has a long way to go, but here is a measure of its progress. The son taking up a position long denied the father, standing on the edge, unafraid to speak his mind.
I think people in China have suffered too much. And if for all that sacrifice, all we get is just more money, more cars, taller buildings, it's just not worth it. If Chinese culture doesn't make a contribution to the world, that would be a great pity.
His father wrote The Announcement of the Dawn in 1942. Perhaps he just spoke too soon.
You, poet loyal to time, please bring to mankind your message of comfort. Hurry, before the night is over. Tell all that what they've been waiting for is coming.